Let's jump over to the first story we got here after you smash the like button, of course. High school kids in Colorado walk out of multiple schools after refusing to comply with mask mandates. And here we can see one kid holding up a sign that says, "My body, my choice." Interesting how that one works. This story from Cassandra Fairbanks. Dozens of high school kids walked out of Denver area schools on Thursday after refusing to comply with a mask mandate imposed on them. The Thunder Ridge high school students held signs saying "My body, my choice" and told reporters that those who are scared of the virus should stay home after walking out of class around 9:30 a.m. They were joined by nearby middle school students and their parents. Students from Legend High School in Douglas County also held a protest against the mandate. Here we have a bunch of videos of people walking out. The Tri-County Health Department announced earlier this week to require all students to wear masks, even those who have been vaccinated. The local CBS affiliate reports that they also prevented individual counties from opting out of public health orders. The order took effect on September 1st and is expected to remain in place for the entire school year. Now, here's what they have to say. Quote, "I believe that masks, they've been going for mostly 2 years now. I believe that masks, they've been going for mostly 2 years now. This is going to be the third year of my high school career that's compromised. I want a normal high school career there. If you are scared, you could stay home," said student Austin Knapp as they rallied. "These people agree with me. They hate masks, and I do too," said another student. The Denver Channel reports that Thunder Ridge high school students were joined by Ranch View middle school students and their parents. Quote, "There's enough parents and there's enough scientific data to show otherwise, that this is just not a necessary option that they have to take. And there are enough students that feel the same way," said parent Amy Ellis. Now, I actually don't know all the data. You know why? It's changed so much. I honestly have no idea. I know there were some studies saying they found limited efficacy. There were some studies saying the real problem was being indoors because of recirculated air. And there was recently a study that said, yes, actually masks did reduce transmission. So I can't give anybody advice on this stuff because everybody claims to have the science and I don't know. But I can tell you this. When Bannon said parents would be mad, I don't know if he expected the kids to get mad too and the kids to come out, but if the parents and the kids, and this is just one location, it's cause for optimism. We got some good news, huh?
And this is the first time in the history of civilization that we have a plague or a pandemic that seems to exempt children miraculously, right? The bubonic plague didn't do that. Black Death, SARS, other illnesses sort of hit the population equally. This for some bizarre reason has not affected kids, and yet we're punishing kids like we're treating them like they are as susceptible as adults. It does seem bizarre.
It also doesn't seem to hit people without comorbidities, which is very strange.
Yeah.
There are kids who have died.
Absolutely.
But the number is very, very small relative to the highest risk factor is over 40. Yeah. And so if you look at the CDC data, it drops down significantly. I think obesity was a huge factor. The CDC says around a third of all hospitalizations are obese.
What I want to know is at what point do you have COVID and then be considered infected with COVID? Because the virus can be there and not hurting you at all. Well, and then are you considered infected at that point?
Yes, semantically you're infected, right? So there's actually a lot of viruses people have all the time, but they're asymptomatic. I was reading about I was covering the Ebola outbreak years ago and Zika and stuff. That's why I actually interviewed people at the CDC, and it was really cool actually. They explained how Ebola is a terrible virus, not because it's like physically terrible and people are like, bleh, but because it's so aggressive that it becomes so presentable that it stops its ability to transmit. They said good viruses are the ones you have every day that don't make you sick because they've successfully infected you without triggering your body's immune response, and they're not killing you so they can perpetuate.
So COVID's getting more intelligent as it's evolving to Delta, which is less
intelligent
lethal,
isn't the right word.
Or less lethal, but more infective, I think Delta is.
That's the general trajectory of viruses, as far as I understand it, at least.
Maybe intelligent is the right word, but that is a good point. Basically, the virus is becoming more successful. Right. It's more transmissible and less deadly, which means more people are going to get it. They're going to experience severe symptoms to a lesser degree, but they're going to get sick with it. And that's basically what the CDC was saying to me, that there's a lot of viruses that don't cause enough damage to harm you, so the virus goes on forever and spreads around like crazy. But COVID in its earlier stages was a bad virus. Like it was bad for its own propagation. you know?
Yeah. And I can understand where these kids are coming from, because when you are 15, 16, your window of experience is very few years, right? So every minute that is lost feels like an eternity. Like being a kid waiting for Christmas morning was forever, right? If you've gone through all of the second half of freshman year, all of your sophomore year, now you're beginning junior year, and you can't play a sport, you can't go to a dance, you're still... I too would feel like I am losing these very few precious high school years, and I'm stuck in a bubble. I can see them being protesting.
Just the other day, I looked at my watch and I'm like, it's September already. Like, what's going on? I'm old, so 35.
Wild.
Yeah.
Oof,
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, 35, man.
And do you still, even though we're old, do you still get nervous when you see back to school commercials? I saw one the other day on TV, and like my heart skipped a beat, like back to school, and I'm like, I haven't been in school in 30 years. And I was like, oh my God, back to school. I got so uncomfortable.
30 years?
Oh yeah, I'm old.
Really?
Yeah.
Are you going to say how old you are?
We established this last time I was here. I am 11 years older than you.
Holy moly.
So you haven't been in school for 30 years?
Great.
40, I guess 20 something years.
Yeah, all right, okay, because I was like, what are you, 50?
No,
But it feels like 30. Is that what
Feels
you're
like
saying?
30,
Gotcha. The one comment that really stuck out to me in that article is, if you're scared, you can stay home. I thought that was a really interesting point, because I heard a family member recently say, that, they were explaining some of their hesitancies to go out and experience life, and they said, every time I go out, I have to be worried about what's going to happen to me. And that just struck me as so counterintuitive. And this kid's hit on something that's really vital. It's just like, if you're scared, then you can stay home. That's on you.
Well, we've inverted the script. Now it's like, if you're scared, you're hurting other people, and we should be allowed to go around being scared. I mean, this is who didn't see this coming? We had stories from 7 years ago about the foofy neon safe spaces they're putting in colleges, where if you were triggered by a lecture, you could go inside and sit in a beanbag and hug a plushie.
Yeah.
Like, you think I'm kidding? Like, this is real.
Yeah.
They were like pastel colors, and then you could go to therapy, and they'd be like, remember that video where it's Nicholas Christakis, I think his name is. And I think this is the incident where the woman says college is not about fostering intellectual, conversation. It's about creating a home and a family and a safe community or something like that. And it's like, no, it isn't.
I remember that.
It's not what college is.
Yeah. And that started as the therapy dog during midterms because you needed to comfort. That we're at the point now, although that probably doesn't happen because of COVID, but we're at the point now, it's like Ben Shapiro's coming to campus. Well, we have to shut it down. Like I am, and people will say, real college students, how embarrassing. College students will say, like, I am afraid knowing he's on campus. It's like, well, dude, then you need to just live in a closet the rest of your life. Like if Ben Shapiro, 4 miles down the road at like whatever hall giving a talk to the YAF kids has you literally afraid, then just you should end it right now, because you're never going to survive in this world.
Isn't Ben like 5'8"?
Yeah, he's.
I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just pointing out like
he's not a very intimidating guy.
But to be fair, he speaks very fast.
He does speak very fast.
So if that triggers you.
Yeah,
then I
and what
understand.
triggers is that he will probably he'll outwit everyone in the room 5 times over because he is just very damn smart.
Oh, those videos of him owning people.
Oh gosh, it's so he's so quick.
That's what they're scared of.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like I got to say, when I saw Ben on Real Time, I was impressed.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
He's succinct.
He's
calm.
I mean,
he's
went to-
calmer than he used to be too.
But then, like when
went to
we
law
were
school.
in college, I mean, I only did 2 years of college. I didn't graduate. I'm a college dropout. When I was in college that short time, I mean, we had Noam Chomsky come to school.
Yeah.
We had communists come and lecture. None of us were like, I'm so afraid knowing that this person is here. It's just like, oh, you don't want? I'm not going to go to that lecture.
Yeah, I think that
Just-
what they're really saying is that they're triggered by him being there.
Yeah.
Like they're not really afraid for their life. I don't think so anyway. I
But
hope
do you know
not.
what? Do you know what triggered actually
Like,
means?
do you know what afraid really
know-
means?
but do you guys understand what like a trigger it actually is? It's a real term when someone has post-traumatic stress disorder, or whatever you want to call it. George Carlin has a great bit on this.
PTS.
Shell
I think
shock.
they got rid of the disorder part of it now.
Oh,
It's just
PTS.
PTS.
So, you go to war and you hear a bang in the middle of the night, you wake up, you're like, what's happening? And you experience that for a long period of time. Then you see your friends die. And then all of a sudden you're back in the United States and a car backfires and you break down, you start sweating and your heart's beating like crazy. That's a trigger. A trigger and you need someone to help you through that to come back. Like, we're not in the conflict anymore. So
We've bastardized that now too. Just things I find discomforting are now a trigger.
I mean, even the right's memified it.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, the left got so triggered by this.
do you think
Like,
that Ben and others like him are like triggering people, like making them feel like they're in second grade again, and it's that kid that's just keeps talking to them and saying, either making fun of them or saying mean things to them, and then they feel that when they see Ben because he's so like poignant, like straight through you?
Well, it's funny that you say that, because I did have something I wanted to interject that's not exactly on topic, but I spoke with a military veteran who, he's 90 now, but he spent 30 years working with veterans that had PTSD. And he had no data, but he had anecdotal evidence. When I spoke to him, he said, Chris, 90% of these veterans that have genuine PTSD, it didn't come from the war, it came from their childhood. In his practice.
Wow.
And that's what I said. I'd never heard anything like that. But in the 30 years that he worked with these veterans, he was just like, it's what happened, according to him, is that these kids had PTSD in childhood because of traumatic situations they were in, and the war just blew it up, you know, and they never got back.
Interesting.
I've not been in hardcore full scale warfare with airstrikes or anything like that. I've been in urban conflict. I've seen people lose their lives and shoot at each other, and there have been bullets flying past me. And I would not say I've ever experienced anything beyond there was one point where a car backfired and I had an adrenaline rush, and then I was like, whoa, I gotta calm down, and that was the extent of it. And so there are a lot of people I've met in hostile environment trainings, and I've talked to about this, and they've explained that they've seen the worst you could possibly imagine, and they don't have negative impacts from it. I don't know what that means, but I think some people are attuned to make it through these things without having issues or post-traumatic stress disorder, whatever it's supposed to be called. And some people are heavily impacted by it. I don't know what it is. I'm not
That's
a therapist.
very interesting.
Yeah.
I'd never heard that before.
But I mean, going back to those kids though who were protesting, I mean, more kids pre-COVID died every year from the flu in school. And everyone's heard this argument a million times. We never shut down for the flu, but we didn't. You found out your classmate had the flu, and it was like, oh, dude, don't come to school. You're going to get everyone sick. But schools didn't shut down. But we lost hundreds of thousands of Americans every year to the flu, and it was just kind of understood. And kids were susceptible to that.
I do think it's fair to point out, though, the long-term effects of COVID, the potential long-term effects are what's worrying.
Yeah.
And to be fair, what they're saying about young people is that they're a transmission vector. So the kids aren't the ones being impacted, but they're negatively impacting old people. And my response to this is since when do we have the young people make sacrifices for the old people? I understand these are serious issues and people are concerned, and we definitely don't want old people dying. We don't want anybody to die.
No.
But at a certain point, I mean, I look at what happened with Fukushima in Japan when the old people went and volunteered to go into the reactor to shut it down, knowing that this was the end of their lives. But they were saying things like, "I'm going to sacrifice what I have left to help the next generation." And so what I really want to get to is look, I'm not a doctor. I can recognize that there are health risks. There are a bunch of stories about teenagers who lost taste and smell for a prolonged period. I'm sure that sucks. But, I'm losing my train of thought. What was I going to say? Oh, yeah. The kids, the suicides that we've seen spiking in certain countries. And, whether it's one life or 100, there was a story of a guy I knew, acquaintance. He's a tech CEO. His son killed himself because this kid's, I think he was 10 years old, and he spent a year in lockdown.
Yeah.
Basically solitary, never seeing his friends. Life was stopped. And I don't think the adults realized what this was doing to children psychologically. That's 10% of his life experienced in a house. You can't leave. You can't go outside. Everything's shut down. You can't. You can't. That's what happened. And eventually it's just the kid couldn't take it. I was really surprised to hear the story, to be honest, because the idea that these kids were pushed into that frame of mind to me was crazy, and their parents are right there, and there's ample opportunity for the parents to be there with their kids, but we see more and more stories about this. Adults can handle this stuff better than kids can, and that's what we got to be worried about. Obviously, we don't want diseases spreading, and COVID sucks, but at what point are we going to be the lockdowns destroying the economy? Nursing home stuff that Cuomo and these other governors did literally murdered people. How about we do the opposite? We allow the economy to function. We put some restrictions in place that protect the elderly and the immunocompromised, so they're all taken care of. And then we make sure the nursing homes aren't dying, and the kids can live their lives without feeling depression and suicidal thoughts and things like that.
Well, that was the purpose of rushing the vaccine, which I know is now FDA approved, at least one of them. But the purpose of the quick vaccine in Operation Warp Speed was to protect the elderly. It was for older adults. It was for older adults to say, we don't expect you, Grandma and Grandpa, to live the rest of your golden years in your living room. So let's get a vaccine that you can get back into society. And that has gone from let us get a vaccine to protect the vulnerable to give your 16-year-old, and hell, you said you don't know the long-term effects of COVID, and I know renal issues have come out now as a long-term effect. what is the long-term effect of a vaccine that no one knows the long-term effect of?
Right.
Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to see the full show, come back to this channel, youtube.com/TimcastIRL, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., where you can leave comments and super chat, and we actually will read your comments on the show. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and if you want exclusive members-only content, segments you can't get anywhere else, go to timcast.com, become a member, and we even have full bonus episodes. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.